This podcast may contain graphic and/or explicit content that may not be suitable for some listeners, especially kids like me. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Real Life Podcast, brought to you by the Thin Blue Line for Women. In this podcast, we open up and talk about real life issues as they relate to first responders. It's raw, it's real, and it's about time. I'm Tamara, your host. Thanks for joining me. Are you looking for Thin Blue Line gear? It's available on our website at thinbluelineforwomen.com. That's thinblueline4women.com. Show your support for law enforcement and get your Thin Blue Line gear today. Just click on shop at thinbluelineforwomen.com. Don't forget, you can listen to the Real Life Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. On March 2nd, I invited Sergeant Manderzzz onto the Real Life Podcast. She was such a joy to talk with, so I invited her back for another episode. Today, we're going to discuss COVID-19, George Floyd, firefighters, active shooters, and marriage. So go grab your favorite beverage, maybe a snack, and enjoy part 2 with Sergeant Manderzzz. All right, I have Sergeant Manderzzz back in the studio with me today. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for coming on again.
Yeah,
So I wanted to have you back on because the first time I had you on, it was back on March 2nd, and that's before COVID-19 hit.
Yeah.
And so we had nothing to complain about back then. We were just laughing, talking, doing our thing.
Little did we know.
But now we have things to talk about.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks after that, COVID hit. So tell me how it affected your job, and then tell me how it affected your family, because you have 2 little ones at home.
I do. And I was asked about this from, local news person. And honestly, I've never wanted people spit on me or to be within 6 feet of me while I'm at work. So practically, in terms of what we do to prevent stuff like that, I don't think a whole lot changed. I mean, they gave us equipment that we wouldn't have thought about ever putting on to begin with. I mean, if we were using masks, we were putting them on other people, like spit hoods and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
But it really, at the get-go, didn't change a whole lot. I mean, they did some things around our department to bolster our staffing, to make sure we weren't short-staffed if anyone got sick, and luckily we had no one get sick for a long time.
And you're in Florida.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we were very fortunate, had no issues with that. And we were, I wasn't sending officers to calls that they just didn't need to go to. If we were having party complaints with no complainants and no allegations of any violence or anything like that, I was canceling calls.
Yeah. Right,
We weren't, there was no need for officers to go to a lot of things that weren't risking life and limb, So that was really all that was tremendously different. Yeah. That and, I've got boatloads of masks to hand out when officers are like, I need a mask. But other than that, like I said, I think for years and years and years, no one in this profession has wanted people's bodily fluids on them to be in such close proximity. Right. So I'm like, what's new about this?
What's different? Exactly. Right. Now, at your police department, it's a police department, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have like a front counter area where the public can come in and file a complaint or ask a question or anything like that? I'm sure that changed a little bit.
Well, thankfully, that area had been put behind glass some time ago.
Okay.
And then our records division, where people would go in and get report copies and pay, city fees and fingerprinting, all that kind of stuff. That
Yeah.
they're all behind glass too.
Oh,
So
okay.
um,
That didn't have to change either. But what about the
not
employees, though? I
tremendously.
mean, the employees probably sat right next to each other at desks. Did that have to change? Did they have to rearrange furniture or anything like that you know of?
They didn't. There were, some folks that they had doing things, working remotely,
Mhm.
from their home locations. I know we had some people that do that. They altered kind of the work schedule. Like, I think that was the biggest thing because we just didn't have a way to physically separate people.
Yeah.
So they would say, okay, this week you are working in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you're working another half of people are working Tuesday, Thursday, and then they'd swap. Kind of
Yeah,
like,
right.
I think that was the easiest
Yeah.
way for them to manage that.
Mhm.
And what they considered, if folks were not essential to be there,
Mhm.
the city had them stay home.
I remember, seeing a lot of, like, memes and GIFs when that first happened. "Oh, I'm not essential,"
Right.
and everyone felt
Right.
their feelings were
No
so
one wants to
hurt.
be essential right now, though.
I guess I'm not essential anymore. So how did it affect your children at home? Because this is right during, the school year with probably 9, 10, 11 weeks left, and we
Yeah.
get pulled out of school. So how did that work?
So we were on spring break
Mhm.
when they decided to go to the virtual school program, the online learning or whatever. So it was a couple weeks before that really got into full swing because, like I said, everyone was on spring break, even the teachers.
Mhm.
Um, so it was challenging. I have my son um, needs a lot of direction and focus. So it was really, really time consuming. And, I'm in school and I'm working full time, and my husband works full time, and we work opposite schedules. And he was a school resource officer. So, then he got put back on patrol because the schools are closed. So his schedule changed, and it was difficult. I mean, it was when they sent out the survey for our school district to find out who was sending their kids back. I honestly could not type sending them back fast enough. Um, because there's only so much that, and I feel terrible for kids who are all by themselves,
Yeah,
who don't have siblings or
right.
who, would have to be in before, after care and things like that. And we tried to avoid that with our kids because we knew there were folks out there who needed those spots
Mhm.
way more than we did. We
Yeah,
were able to, um, they worked with my schedule. So my husband's schedule would butt up against my schedule, and we would, kind of trade off, and I'd go in. So
yeah.
I ended up working later at night than I would prefer to, so halfway into the midnight shift, but
Ugh,
at least it was something we were able to do and not have to say, oh, because we need a couple hours of overwatch care. Now
right.
someone who maybe on their own may not have family or other, folks around them to help them. We didn't want to take their spot in a very limited essential worker daycare opportunity. So,
Right, right.
but in that regard, we were super fortunate. Um, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work being a teacher, and I couldn't imagine having to be home and do your normal Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, if you had to work remotely from home, and now you've got your kids who are trying to
Right,
I couldn't imagine the poor people that have to navigate through all that because,
right,
in the mornings that I was like, you're getting all your schoolwork done. And then the
right,
littlest
yeah.
one thought she was like the most important little queen bee. She's like, I've got homework to do on your computer, mommy. Like, I think I need to watch this assignment. Like, she was very very motivated by it because her brother was doing all his stuff on a computer, and
Mhm.
I'd look over and she's like typing away. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm doing my school assignment. I'm like,
How
okay.
old is she again?
She's 4.
Okay, see, now that's what makes it even more cute. For the listeners that don't know, she's not 15, she's 4.
She will probably be far less cute at 15.
Hopefully she won't hear this podcast someday.
Mm.
Okay, so that's COVID. How did you guys keep the kids busy once everything like shut down? What did you like when summer hit, and were things still shut down and you couldn't go anywhere, or like
Yeah,
what?
for a long time there was, and we have a pool out back. So when we were off and were able to be home with them, or when my husband was home with them, we'd take him in the pool and let him play out back and, kind of keep some semblance of normalcy.
Mhm.
But they miss their friends, that was
Yeah.
my daughter's biggest complaint at 4 is, I want to go to school and see my friends.
Yeah.
And, my son has buddies that live in the neighborhood, and, we weren't sending them out to go knock on their door because,
Yeah.
who knows what their family's feeling like or what they're doing. So, we waited for a long time before we kind of let him out and on the loose again. But I think they had a good time.
That's good.
I think they did okay.
That's good. So all this COVID comes up, and it's still not going away.
No, apparently not.
I thought it would, but apparently we're back in it. And then May 25th hit. May 25th happened, the killing of George Floyd, followed by the riots, which are still going on almost 2 months later.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a hard question, and,
Okay.
and I'm not political. Everyone knows that the Thin Blue Line for Women website and social media pages, I am not political on there at all. I like to be inspirational. I like to empower people. I like to have positivity. But I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, what was your personal reaction? Let's set aside your sergeant hat for a moment.
Well,
What was your
hard to do?
I know, and I thought about that when I wrote
I
the question.
know.
I'm like, she's not. They're intertwined. But what was your personal reaction when you watched the initial video? What were your feelings? What was your reaction?
It was initial like oof. I mean, there's really not another word for it. And honestly, and as much as you want to separate the two, you really can't, because it infiltrates your mindset. I wanted to know what else was going on. What more has happened? What more created that snippet of video? I've never been one to either excuse or demonize someone on something that I'm not fully aware of. So, and even to this day, I still don't feel confident that I'm fully aware of all of the circumstances surrounding that incident. I can tell my officers all day what to do different to avoid that video, to avoid having a negative effect on your community that way. Absolutely. But in regards to what actually happened between those people in that situation on that day, I'm not qualified to speak on, but as soon as I saw it, I thought, I hope there's more to this. But this isn't going to go well.
Right. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It was stressful to watch for me.
Yeah.
And I was personally, and my sergeant hat was yelling at them, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, I was yelling, like, stop.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, this is a video. They can't hear me, but it was really frustrating.
That's true.
It was frustrating.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it's frustrating to know that regardless of the good that anyone on either side is doing, the negative will always get the most attention.
It's human nature.
If anyone who's ever been through any sort of training about how the media develops stories and how they, a lot of the purpose behind the media, I don't know that they would, I don't know if you feel any different about it, but you definitely have a perspective where there's more to it than this. I wish more people kind of carried that perspective. I'm not going to make my judgment based on one thing. I'm going to kind of start to gather some facts and find out where that leads me instead of, being so quick to determine what's right and wrong right in that moment.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you one more question, then we're going to move on because I don't want to stay on this negativity. I'm going to put you on the spot though.
Okay.
Okay, so what would you say to an advocate of the Black Lives Matter movement if he or she were standing in your face right now saying, all of you cops are pigs, you're horrible, you need to be defunded? What would be your response to that?
Come ride with my officers. I would hope that it was someone from my community. I think that's probably a bigger problem, is that they're taking these broad strokes and applying them to places where they may be facing separate types of issues and not the same issues. You look at some communities where St. Louis is a completely different area. Portland's a completely different area. Seattle's a completely different area. Right. And if you're painting broad strokes about your community issues in places that, are not Seattle and Portland and St. Louis and Atlanta, then you need to look in your own backyard. But I would say, absolutely, come with us and come see what it is that we do. And then let's talk.
Yeah. Come on one ride along.
Yeah, just absolutely.
One, and see what we deal with. I had, I was going to have it up on my computer, and I don't, but I wrote the book Through My Eyes, the CSI Memoirs That Haunt the Soul. Well, the other day I had a really nice Captain Eric Burr. He responded and wrote a review on it after he read the book, and he put it on Twitter, and bless his heart, it was so sweet. He said, like, in a world where everyone wants to defund the police, this is a really good read. We need it. We need to see what our officers go through, the emotional toll that the job takes, etc. And a person wrote on that post who's not a follower of the Thin Blue Line for Women, and I'm not a follower of them. It looked like a brand new account, which are popping up a lot lately. Brand new accounts with one follower, and they're brand new. But so many people want to have a voice, right?
Oh yeah.
And this person wrote back, yes, that's true, but that's no excuse for hurting people or for killing people, and they need to take away. I should be reading it that way I don't get it out of context, but I agreed with the person. I said, you're right. It doesn't excuse our bad behavior or for hurting or killing. But my post was about my book, and it was about the emotional toll. It had nothing to do with FLOYD. It had nothing to do with COVID. It had nothing to do with any of that. My book came out way before that. So for people to come on my posts and a lot of people's posts now and attacking us, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Mind your own business. That's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about the emotional toll that cop work takes on people. I'm not talking about the killing of George Floyd right now, and I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about
officers. That's their take on the whole, it's Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter versus they don't want to be to have their stories or their causes or their justification, as they put it, belittled or overshadowed by other movements. You're the same way. Your book is representative of the content in it. And to say, oh, well, it doesn't excuse this. Well, like you said, that's not what you're talking about. That wasn't the purpose, and that's an argument that I've seen from people in the Black Lives Movement when the conversation is, if Black Lives mattered so much, then what are you doing in these cities where Black people are killing Black people at an exponential rate? And they said, well, that's a totally different thing. Well, then your book's a totally different thing. You can't just say, you can't say what you want is totally different, but what I want is not totally different. Like, that's not how that works.
Yes, everything's got to fit their agenda. So. Okay, enough politics, enough negativity. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to laugh.
Oh, good.
How's that sound?
That sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. And there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm. Are you interested in CSI or forensics? The Forensic Science Academy program has been recognized as the premier training program completely dedicated to students who are launching their forensic career. The Academy offers specialized hands-on training modules in basic and advanced crime scene investigation, forensic photography, fingerprint identification and classification, crime scene management, and coroner investigations. Instruction is offered in the form of weekend workshops, online courses, webinars, and seminars. Training at the Academy of Forensic Science will give students the competitive edge employers and agencies are looking for when hiring. Past graduates are now working as crime scene investigators, private investigators, forensic pathologists, coroner investigators, forensic nurses, forensic accountants, and even criminalists. The courses are taught by forensic professionals who are experts in the field and hold membership in the International Association for Identification and other professional forensic organizations. For more information, visit forensicscienceacademy.org. Again, that's forensicscienceacademy.org. Okay, we're back from break, and we were obviously talking before because we're laughing right now. Okay, so COVID-19 was a time where we, came out of our shells and we started praising the medics and praising the doctors and the nurses and EMS and all that.
Absolutely.
And right now, with what's going on with the violent protests and things like that, we're pushing, Blue Lives Matter and yay to the cops and let's support our cops and let's defend the police. But what about firefighters? Are we leaving them out, do you think?
They've always been America's heroes, right? Like, I mean, they're way more strict on, how they mask up and do all that. And,
Wait, you think they're more strict than police officers when they go to calls?
For the COVID stuff, without a doubt. And now it's kind of like, we'll get the call and they do the COVID screening questions. And, we've had calls with people who are positive and we're like, okay, the fire department can go in and let us know if they need us.
It's a medical call only.
Well, yeah, this sounds super medical. We'll just be out here waiting.
Yep. No crime. No victim of crime. Medical only.
Nope.
Yep.
I was like, he just needs to go to the doctor. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my 100%. Gosh. All right. So I want to hear some stories. You've got to have some. On your Twitter page, you are constantly posting and making us laugh. So come on.
I kind of treat Twitter like a diary. I don't know if that's the way you're supposed to Twitter.
Yes, that is you. You're right.
Twitter's like my journal. Because I post this stuff or send a text to, a friend and they'd be like, okay. And which point? Okay. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I want to share that.
Hold on one second. For all of you listeners out there who don't know, who are listening, but you don't know who Sergeant Manderzzz is, it's at Sergeant, like SGT Manderzzz. It's got a lot of Z's after it. So just type that in and you'll find her. And then you'll see what she means. Okay, go ahead. Continue. I'm sorry.
So I kind of treat it like a journal. I mean, that's the best out because it's an outlet for me. I mean, that's really it, is just kind of a way to vent. I don't really use it for a whole lot of other things at this point.
It's the way that you say things that, oh my Lord, I can sit there and read one thing and I'm laughing for like 10 minutes.
Well, good. I'm glad it entertains people because
Yeah.
that's what's going on in my brain.
Right.
And, I feel entertained. So it's.
And when you have, okay, so Sergeant Manderzzz has, for all the listeners out there, she has this cute little filter on her phone. You have an iPhone,
Oh,
right?
my jokes. Yeah.
And she has her kids on there and they have the cute little faces and they tell jokes. You have to go on her page, follow her, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. We'll have to do another joke here soon.
Fireman stories?
So last in-service cycle, so our agency does an annual in-service cycle where, over the course of about 8 to 10 weeks, all of our officers go through, 40 hours of high liability retraining and things like that. And so back in 2019, obviously 2018 was the Parkland shooting, and that came with a slew of administrative and policy changes for law enforcement, school resource officers, et cetera, how we respond to active shooter situations. It was great stuff. And I was super fortunate to be part of committees that determined how that happened because I was this SRO supervisor as part of community services. So in that in-service cycle, and our agency has been very fortunate. We have done active shooter training and single officer response for years. We have taught numerous, just everyone across our entire area, businesses, churches, private entities, public schools. We had taught them how to respond in these situations, in like a full, thorough 8-hour day of this is why we do it. This is the data that backs up why we do the things that we do. This is why we're telling you to do the things that we're telling you to do, in terms of running, hiding, fighting, and how and what those things actually look like. And we take people into rooms in their buildings and offices and schools and show them exactly what we're talking about. And
you run scenarios.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that's integral to it. So we wanted to teach every single officer who was not an active shooter instructor what we were doing. So everyone was on the same page because we had taught so many of these community members were like, the patrol officers, the responding officers, all these folks, they should know what we're teaching. So we did an in-service training. We included our fire department because obviously in a critical incident like that, they'll be responding with us. Our tactical medics will join us when we're after that initial single officer response. They'll be part of those secondary response teams. And they wanted to know, what kind of stuff they would encounter if they were going to a mass casualty incident. So every week that we did this training with officers, the fire department would rotate their personnel through. So it's kind of like a, crawl, walk, fast jog process. So, from how to recover people, from the middle of a school hallway, a downed person, with the officers there. And so being an instructor in that, I had a lot of opportunities to play victim, to get drugged down a hallway, to get thrown over someone's shoulder and chucked out of a room. I think I only got my head hit on a door frame once. It wasn't a bad thing.
Oh gosh.
So, we run through all these scenarios through most of the afternoon. And then at the end, we've got the big one, where everyone's staged outside and they hear gunshots inside, and that single officer goes in and starts, and they have to, the response teams are designating casualty collection points and doing all this stuff. And if you've ever been in a high school, yes. And if you've ever been in a high school hallway, it's really loud. The walls are concrete, the floors are concrete, and everything's, bouncing all over. So watching them try to find where the source of these, we're using, I think at that point we were using air horns to signify gunfire, to get them to the source. So they gave us these really cute little stickers that said GSW for gunshot wound. So we would paste these little stickers all over ourselves and the medics would have to address our gunshot wound.
Oh, wow.
So, we were trying to I guess in medic world, there's, different wounds you would treat right then and there in the hallway and different ones you would drag someone down the hall and worry about. So we made sure to put them in places where they'd have to address it.
Yeah.
Like a femoral artery bleed or something. So I'm laying in the hallway and I'm toward the back of the scenario. So they've having to make their way through this whole mess of classrooms and casualty collection points and stuff. And I'm laying there. And all of a sudden the fire department, I hear the officers advance and I'm, playing it up like, I'm dying, that whole thing, screaming. Cause that's, people get kind of excitable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Scary situations. And they're, screaming and freaking out. Right. So I hear the medics say, okay, we're going to help you. And the one kneels down and I've got this gunshot wound sticker on my leg. And I'm not really looking at him, but all of a sudden I feel him completely like hand first with all his body weight land right on my crotch. And I gasped. I was like, oh my God. And I kind of cut it up. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, who taught you how to do first aid? Because that is not how we do CPR around here. He is Scottish, so he has a very thick accent. And I was like, man, they do things totally different in the UK. This is crazy. Apparently he started to fall forward and caught himself on my crotch.
Oh no.
And
poor guy.
Poor me. Oh. Got him.
Okay, poor you. I'm sorry.
Stranger there. And so he's trying his best and like he's just so embarrassed. You can tell like he's
totally.
7 shades of red. So they get me and drag and I'm dying at this point. And we get out and after each of these large scale scenarios, they do this debrief and he's, they're like, does anyone have anything to add? And I'm like, I would like, and he stops me. He's like, I'm just so sorry. He's like, I can't even tell you how sorry. He was a newer medic and you get to know some of the FD guys and you see him running calls with you. And so most of them you have a good relationship with. And I was, a negotiator with our TAC team for a long time. So, I knew all the TAC medics and they're all dying. They're like, you're not going to believe what he did. And he's like, oh my gosh, I can't live this down.
Never.
Right. So I was in community services following that. So I was not on the road. I wasn't running calls with people. I wasn't so I didn't see him at all. Right. I come back to the road. One of the first calls that I'm heading out on after this COVID thing starts and him and his partner pull up in their squad and he looks at me and he doesn't even want to get out of the car. He's like, I'm laughing and his partner's like, what is going on? So I had to tell him and he's like, I can't believe you just told him that. I'm like, well, listen, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I think people should know our relationship here. We have a history. It's fine. So he's so now every time his partner sees me, he's like, oh, I make sure to give him crap all the time I see him. And so those are things like you just never, ever live down.
No, not forever.
No. But I'm convinced that the way they do CPR in the UK is very wrong. If they're going crotch first on people, I'm just saying, I think they need to rethink their tactics. I'm no medic. However, I am first aid certified.
Trained.
And I do not remember that in any of the classes I've ever been to.
Oh, that poor guy. I mean
it's certainly, if you got someone faking that they're dying, better get their attention.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
Little, might be more effective than a sternum rub. I don't know.
Yeah. Remember, well, you never had to work the jail, did you?
No.
Because you're a PD. Yeah. Okay. So I was sheriff and we had to work the jail. And you don't know how many people faked.
I believe it.
Fainting. Oh my gosh. And we would love when the nurses would come up because we couldn't touch them unless the nurses were there. And unless it was a life-saving thing. But the nurses would always grab her little salt, break it open, put it right underneath their nose and bam,
It's a miracle they were risen from the dead.
Well, they would do it before they got the salt thing out. They're like, no,
wait, hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it. Oh, good Lord, big fakers.
Yeah, I like it. So that was my.
So firemen, they are
handsy people. No,
no, I meant to say.
I'm just kidding. They're fine.
They are just as much to be praised as our
They are.
EMS and our medics, doctors, and everyone that's out there
They
working
do
with
a
COVID.
tremendous amount
Yeah.
to support us.
Yes.
And, we look out for them as much as they look out for us. I had a newer officer on a confirmed death call not that long ago. And I said, hey, I've got another mask for you if you need it, because the person had COVID actually. And
Wait, time out. It was a dead person?
Yeah.
You can still get COVID emitted from them when they're dead? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
You know how they release gases when they're dead.
Oh yeah.
So probably, right? Yeah.
Well,
Ew,
right.
gross.
Well, so we have a variety of different masks, and some of them are the N95s with the respirator pieces in them. Uh-huh. Just the face mask, not the full face mask, but just there's the nose and mouth with the little tiny little filter thing on it. And I was talking to the lieutenant who was on scene, who's a friend of mine, and he looks over at her and he's like, she's not going to go in there with that mask, right? And I'm like, what do you mean he's got COVID or something? Like, plus you can smell it from out here. Like he's like, she's going to smell all of his death right through that little filter. And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. No, I don't want that. I'm like, come on back. Let me give you this other mask I have. She's like, no, I'm fine. He's like, trust her. I just told her, like, that is a bad idea.
Wow. Yeah, but hold on a second. I worked CSI for 15 years, and that mask, we never had a mask to cover smells. We wore the mask so we wouldn't breathe in the particles and the grossness.
Yeah.
It didn't cover the smell.
I think that's what people like. So the smells are the particles getting in your nostrils.
Yeah. I know. So what I did, I found a way to breathe through my mouth the whole time I was on call. Yeah, no, I know. No, I know I'm eating them. I know. Believe me, they were in my pores. I would go home and I would smell like a dead body.
Oh, for sure.
Hair, it's in your uniform. You can't
get
that out. You know.
That's why I'm the sergeant. I'm like, hey, let me know if anything's suspicious in there. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be out here. It's fine.
Yeah. I'll be out here.
Right away from the stank.
But no, I remember. I knew all that was going in my body, in my pores anyway. So I might as well just breathe through my mouth. That way, I don't have to smell it the whole time. Because you have to work. You have to stand up for like hours, and I'm not going to smell that. I would throw up or faint or run out. I mean,
we've actually had situations where we're always being saved by the fire department. Is they've given us their breathing apparatus, like their full face covers and their tanks, and we've had people go in that way. You don't have to smell any of it if it's really bad.
So awesome!
Yeah,
man, I wish we had that.
They hooked us up.
And I wrote about this in my book, that vanilla packet they used to give us to put on our nostrils. Mm-hmm. Well, all it did was smell like a vanilla dead body.
Yeah.
It was the dumbest thing ever. So now do you think I'd buy vanilla candles from the store?
Oh, that would ruin my life. No, I love vanilla candles.
No, not me. I have vanilla candles, but they have to be mixed with other more powerful flavors, like lavender.
Any flavor
or
but
cinnamon. Yeah, exactly.
Like I can just see you at Bath and Body Works sniffing the candles, and you're like, ma'am, do you have anything that's a little less death than
she's like, what?
Vanilla? Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. You're like, I just want a non-death vanilla candle, please.
I know. And my daughter, poor my daughter, she bought me a vanilla candle one year. And, thank you, honey. I really appreciate that. It's beautiful. And we got candles out one time. She goes, Mom, how come you never burn my candle? And I was like, oh, crap, So what do you do, What do you do?
Well,
I know. I felt so bad. Oh.
That is sad.
It is sad. It is sad. Okay. I want to know.
Okay.
Let's talk about something completely different.
Oh, okay.
How do you and your husband stay married? And how do you stay happy with 2 kids, full-time jobs, and cops, no less, who have the highest divorce rate, I think, in the world? Are we still at 85% divorce rate? I don't know. I haven't looked it up.
Well, we've both been divorced, if that matters.
Wait, what'd you say? I think
we've both been divorced, so we got that out of the way. Maybe that's it. I don't.
Everyone gets a divorce under their belt.
Yeah, do that. Move on, and then
And then,
you'll be
and then
fine.
get together.
We try not to talk a lot about work. I mean, it's hard. We work at the same place, so our paths cross indefinitely. But
I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Which I'm notorious for. Why not talk about work? Don't you need? Okay, so my book kind of revolved around me. I stopped talking, and I didn't want to talk about it. But you need to talk about it. So you got to get that stuff out. So talk about that. What's
so we do.
You do if you need to?
Yeah,
like
I think
bothering
so.
you?
Yeah, I mean, and if there's other work stuff, like one of my best friends was an officer with us for a long time, and she lives up north now. But so I'll talk to her if it's like super specific stuff that he's just gonna be like, yeah, I already know about that.
Like like if you feel he's not
you
gonna
read your email too, I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's honestly, I think it's just accepting that, because it was funny the way you asked, you're like, how do you stay happy? I think you recognize that you're not always going to be happy.
Okay. That's good to hear.
That, it's not always going to be easy. It's kind of what you make of it, and what you value in terms of sticking with it. Is there someone else you want to have to do this life with? You're going to have to do this life.
Yeah.
If you want to do it with someone, then do it with someone. If you don't, then don't. But it's knowing that it's super, super easy to quit. And, there are definitely times where you're like, man, why do people put themselves through this stuff? But then having, someone in your corner and having positive things to focus on is probably the best thing I would say. Is just saying, like, there's terrible things that happen to everyone, and no one's perfect. And, what you see in other people is not what they're living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And getting that out of your head in terms of the ideal, oh, this is what a perfect relationship would be like. Well, yeah, probably. But it's not going to be, because I guarantee you the person you're looking at is not having a perfect time all the time.
Right. We're all human.
Accepting that, not everyone's going to be that ideal image that you create in your mind. They're just not going to be. They're going to leave something on the floor that you're going to trip on. And it's going to make you want to beat them with it. And then knowing that there are rules against that, you get a lot of trouble.
Especially as an officer, I think you would, you're going to take it away.
Yeah. So I think we're super fortunate that, I kind of go back and forth. We're super fortunate we're in the same profession, but it does kind of overwhelm you. Like I don't want to talk about work all the time, with him. It gets exhausting. You do want to find other things. So, and I think it almost makes us, like, forces us to find other things to, occupy our time with.
Yeah.
I mean, at the present, that's children.
Yeah.
Dealing with the stuff that they're joyful a lot. Yeah.
You're being sarcastic.
Sometimes they're terrible. I mean, I'm not going to get rid of them, but I'll keep them. But yeah, so that's the other struggle, is you're kind of like, oh man, when the kids are older and there's all this different stuff, and then you're like, oh, but then the kids are going to be older, then they're not going to be here, and then that makes you sad.
Aww.
So, it's just realizing that life is full of ups and downs and all arounds, and you either want to stick with it or good luck. I don't know.
Well, no, I think that's a good answer. I like that. I like that you reframed what I said about how do you stay happy? Because
Yeah.
you're not happy all the time.
Oh, no. You just
It's
can't be.
right. It's
I think
impossible.
that's
We're
impractical,
human.
yeah.
Yeah.
When people
Yeah.
are like, "Oh, what's the secret to a happy marriage?" It's knowing that you're just not gonna be happy all the time.
Yeah. No, I like the way that you reframed that for me. It's good. So all you listeners out there, if you're not happy today, it's okay.
Embrace the suck for a second. And don't get me wrong, there's gonna be extremes to that. No one deserves to be miserable their whole life.
Of
And,
course. Right.
no one deserves to be in an unhealthy situation. But
Right.
yeah,
that's
a lot
not
of
what
that,
we're talking about.
yeah, a lot of that needs, you have to understand the reference and a point of reference to saying,
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same token, being too idealistic and saying, oh, you should have someone that, is happy with you no matter what. That's not realistic.
Unrealistic. Yeah. Completely. Yeah. Yeah. It's been such a joy having you on again. I cannot believe time has flown.
I know.
It has. So for all of you listeners out there, you've got to follow her page on Twitter so that you can follow her journal. I guess now I know it's a journal.
So you can read my diary.
Yeah.
Those are the people you are.
Hey, you put it out there. We're reading it, girl.
That's true.
So yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
Thank you for being fun and always here. You're just awesome. I love you. You're a great woman.
Thank you.
You're a great woman.
So much. Thank you.
So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Until next time, girl.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Have you ever wondered what being a part of CSI is really like? If so, here's your chance to experience it. My book, titled Through My Eyes, CSI Memoirs That Haunt the Soul, contains 11 personal accounts of the most grueling and heartbreaking crime scenes I worked during my 15 years in the Crime Scene Investigations Unit. While reading my book, you'll walk inside the crime scene tape with me. You'll catch a glimpse of what I saw, touched, smelled, and even tasted during an average workday. I'll take you on a difficult journey of memories, uncovering layers of emotional trauma left behind. So if you're considering a job in CSI, this is the book for you. Or if you're just wondering what it's like to work in CSI, again, this is the book for you. Through My Eyes is available in the ebook format and paperback on Amazon.